on paper money and coins and put into the pledge of allegiance to reaffirm the public belief in God. Shortly after this, determined that meeting between the U.S. and Russians, the situation was serious. Cold portion manufactured in the Rus divert attention of the public away towards some other scary threat, DHL. It was also planned to keep the secret committee elected or appointed officials within both the U.S. and Russian government, as long as it took so long to vet officials, and the Rus was easier to manage at the top. In the late 1950s, NASA was formed to compartmentalize, containerize, sanitize information from all space platforms and vehicles. We sold NASA to the public, claiming that all information would belong to them. Actually, they got very little, and even that was highly sanitized. Our first efforts were to keep the public informed about Venus, and that it's a similar planet to Earth, and that it's not
it would be perhaps near that magnitude. That's an awful lot.
A sacrifice for the species.
That's a tough trigger to pull, my friend.
I don't know. Bruce Willis did a great job that meteorite.
It's still a hard trigger to pull. I mean, if you know that a lot of people aren't going to make it to the other side when things are better and we have evolved, even perhaps most, that's a hard trigger. Like I say, I wouldn't pull it.
I don't think all the presidents volunteered to stand on that podium for this.
Well, yeah, well, I don't think. Let's find out what you do know about. I mean, you said you had no contest, basically, with the majority of what John Lear said. So,
I got to interview Bill English here in Phoenix in 1993.
So I want to know why you believe that, why you believe those things to be true, as does John.
When you interview people and you know how to read their body language, look at their eye movement, the hand movement, the manner in which they swallow while talking. Two people come to mind. One is Travis Walton, the other is Bill English. Both of those men mean exactly what they are saying. Okay?
I know.
Now,
I interviewed Travis Walton for hours and hours. In fact, he has lost others in the crew. I don't have any questions about that. It happened.
either they are the greatest actors deserving of the best Oscar in the world, or they're telling the truth.
No, it happened. It happened. There's no question about that. I mean, they had lied, detective tests. They all backed each other up. They all saw the stories with the saying. It happened.
A good investigator doesn't have to worry about presenting evidence in appropriate format for court. He can get a good read on people he's interviewing, he or she. And a good interviewer can read interviewee and know immediately whether he's getting a snow job or not.
So, you're telling me that based on the interviews you've done, enough of that to be true, to take whatever portion you don't know to be true yourself for sure, on faith. In other words, enough of it is true that probably most of it is true.
When somebody is coming across as truthful as Travis Walton or Bill English, and at the same time they have a pedigree that is absolutely incontrovertible, such as their military service, their service to the intelligence community, their service as scientists. In other words, somebody with the credentials of a Hal Puthoff. And you put those two things together, you have no choice. You utterly have no choice. And then when you run into other individuals telling different parts of the same story, it becomes a very, very complex puzzle, and as the pieces fall into place, my specialty art, above and beyond everything else, is I am a person who composites information. I listen carefully and I find common factors in testimony, common factors in other people's research that they share on a quid pro quo.
And how did you digest and render the Philip Corso information before he passed on? I, of course, had the honor of interviewing him a number of times.
Colonel Corso's testimony, I got to interview him for twice while we were in Roswell in July of 1997.
In person?
In person.
Yes.
And he corroborated Frank Kaufman's statements regarding the spacecraft and flight crew. He corroborated our Wright-Patterson witness that we know as Rick. Now, Kevin Randall has walked away from Kaufman, and Mark Rodiger has walked away from Kaufman, and everybody but Don Schmidt make the presentation in court and convince the jury that a UFO crashed at Roswell and that a cover-up was perpetrated for whatever reasons that we want to speculate on.
I take it you wouldn't be in great fear of the jury being shown the official military explanation of what actually occurred, in their opinion. And
In my
Roswell,
opinion,
they
they'd
were
laugh.
dummies and everything. Well, I laugh.
In my opinion, they'd laugh.
I laugh.
Everybody laughs. When have you met somebody that doesn't laugh other than, say, what's his name, Philip, you know, the gentleman from Popular Science?
No, I've tried it.
Phil Glass.
Oh, Phil Glass.
He's about the only one other than Carl Flock that I can think of that isn't laughing.
You know, actually, I think that I recall interviewing Phil Glass at a time after that, shortly after that, and to be honest with you, Phil said, it wasn't really what I hoped for. I mean, his expectations of that were not fulfilled. So even he was kind of critical of, the military's presentation. I mean, how could you not be? Huh?
I just feel sorry for Colonel Weaver, don't you?
Well, yes.
I feel sorry for Colonel Weaver because he's put in the same position that Jesse Marcel's dad was put in.
Yep.
He had to be a good soldier. He had to take the fall for the sake of the story, for the sake of duty. And Colonel Weaver's a good soldier. Let's not short him on that. He's a good soldier.
Well, you see, the national security then, even now, carries a lot of weight. And if people will tell you that you have to keep your mouth shut for the sake of national security, why kneel down and show them this, hunk of aluminum foil or whatever, and then you can talk about it and say, I'd say, baloney, I'm telling them the truth. Well, no, you're a military guy, and you do what you're ordered to do. And besides, it seems like the right thing to do. All right, Bill, hold on for a minute. We're at the bottom of the hour, right?
Yes, sir.
Stay right there. If he just called us, sir, I think he did. Anyway, from the high desert.
hydrogen and other light elements. And there's not a lot of organic material out there proportionally compared to, again, the heavy elements in the burnout planet and the dying stars. And there's not a lot of water out there compared to what you can find in our solar system.
No, we would stand out if you were near enough to see us or hear us. It's just that, God, the distances, Bill, the distances, light years upon light years. We're just a speck of imaginary nothing.
Agreed. There's an absolute necessity, in my opinion, for the few worlds within what I call, our near known space area that are able to support organic life, that are protected sufficiently from intergalactic and interstellar radiation, that are sufficiently protected from solar radiation. And of course, you and George have been real busy with solar radiation systems. That's my number one argument as to why we are an oasis, and that our survival, and you might remember I told you this back in November 22nd of 2002. I said, if we go, they go. I still believe that, Art. Without us, without our genetic material, without liquid water, without boron and beryllium,
and they're on a regular basis. They're taking all of this, including our genetic material. They're abducting people and taking what they need, and this is sustaining them. That and the water and minerals they take and whatever all else. So they need us that much, is what you're saying.
Absolutely, because Art, you can only clone so many stem cells. Keep having if you go into nature and you look at reproduction, nematodes, which is a simple worm form, one of the earliest forms of life on Earth, they can reproduce sexually or they can reproduce asexually. But there is something about the ones that reproduce sexually by exchanging genetic material from different individuals that allows those individuals to adapt to environmental changes faster and with better results than the ones that reproduce asexually simply by replicating their own genetic materials. I believe that the same exists for simple stem cells. You harvest stem cells from fetuses, and you harvest stem cells from human brains of young children. You harvest stem cells from, a variety of sources. But, I didn't believe that there were a lot of abductions taking place in the world, and yet you have Peter Davenport saying, well, there's as many UFOs in our skies on a daily basis as there are cars on the road, by some analogies. There are people like Bud and Dave that are saying that abductions are more common than any of us have given us credit for. Well, there has to be a reason why, and because I'm an artist, I get to speculate wildly, whereas other people's reputations preclude them from doing so. And when you survey other people's information, common patterns tend to come out. And because I'm a forensic illustrator, because I'm a private investigator, I can create some conclusions here based on what I'm seeing. And I can't get crucified the way other people can. So I'm going ahead and I'm saying, well, why? Why is it that we have to, if we're all getting abducted, and if different multiple species factions...
Well, we're not all getting abducted, but even people who suggest that as many as, say, 10% of the population are being abducted are making an awfully big claim.
And that's people from every population, every city, every country in the world.
Right.
And that's what I mean by everybody. It's not just happening down in Mexico and Malaysia and Brazil, which is where I go if I wanted to abduct people. I'll tell you why in a minute. They're taking them from everywhere, and there has to be a reason why. And one of the reasons why is because fresh materials taken from subjects that reproduce sexually are far more viable, far more adaptable, and are far stronger in whatever manufacturing uses that they're used with.
Bill, I will say this. Of the abductees that I've talked to, and that would be many now over the years, when you really push them to the wall with regard to questions about sexual encounters or experimentation in that area being done on them, almost universally you get a yes. Almost universally you get a yes. A lot of people don't like to talk about it or admit it, but generally when you dig in these interviews you get a yes. So whatever's going on is definitely reproducing abductively oriented.
Absolutely. What is happening is these species are dying. And again, I point out EVE2. Look at the lack of genitalia. Look at the lack of genitalia. In fact,
obviously he's been eliminating his spam. That just hasn't been.
He's been eliminating
patches
through
in the pills.
He's been eliminating through his skin like certain species of frogs.
Sorry, I couldn't resist that, but I mean, you're right. There's
an amphibious quality about these little beings and about the Roswell aliens, which are a slightly smaller version of EEE-1.
All right, Bill, hold that thought. We're at the top of the hour. We'll be right back. Bill McDonald is my guest. Check out these drawings.
775-727-1222. To talk with Art Bell from east of the Rockies, call toll-free at 800-825-5033. From west of the Rockies, call Art at 800-618-8255. International callers may reach Art Bell by calling your in-country Sprint access number, pressing option 5, and dialing toll-free 800-893-0903. From coast to coast and worldwide on the internet, this is Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell.
An interview this night with Bill McDonald. He's telling us all about them. Once again, Bill McDonald. Oh, by the way, I want to remind everybody out there, actually, if you don't get all of Coast to Coast AM 7 days a week, then you might want to give them a call on Monday and inquire, why the heck not? That's it. Bill, welcome back. Listen, were those autopsy leaked results specific at all with regard to what, kind of organs they had compared to ours? Tell so much about perhaps what kind of atmosphere they came from and what they lived in.
Some of them did their breathing, liquid, which is the Roswell and abductees repeatedly described rays being cased in under or gel, or what might be a recharge period or a period of nutrition expulsion away.
Well, I hate to be crude here, but I mean, did they yank the guts out and find out if they had hearts, lungs, livers?
Yes, the hearts were fully developed and the brains were thoroughly developed, and one combination like orca, whatever whale has. However, the lungs, many of them were found to be vestigial, and the digestive system even more so. The throat could swallow a substance similar to a pablum could have been ingested that way and utilized by the body. The alimentary canal was vestigial and closed off. They evacuated the bowels the way terrestrial life does. They could not form urinate swallowing yet. The complex, like the liver and everything like that, there were organ structures similar to the liver, but they came in different shapes. And interesting enough, with that alien autopsy hoax that Great Sensibility put out, and I don't think he was the perpetrator of the hoax. I think he just put it out there.
Oh, I know that to be sure.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to think that Ray...
I talked to him, and I know damn well he was sincere at the time. Whatever it was, he thought he had his hands on it.
Well, that
no question about it.
That funny organ that you saw where a liver would be, the initial shot,
yes.
Well, that's a live green California abalone that's been shucked of its shell and stuffed in there. And if you're a scuba diver in California, you know what I'm talking about. Also, that carapace structure that functions for a rib cage.
Yeah.
How many people, eat crawfish anywhere there from Memphis to New Orleans like I have, they'll recognize what they were seeing there. It was a very excellent special effect perpetrated first on the body of a girl who had probably died of Down syndrome. Not Turner's, but Down, because you get that kind of swelling, and in a certain percentage of Down syndrome cases, sexual organs do not develop because they were adulthood. They also die before the age of 40.
How confident are you, simply filling aside again and back to the information that what you're telling me is good info?
I'm very confident that my info is good, both about using a dead girl who had Down syndrome for the hoax, and I'm very confident in the material that I got from Leonard H. Springfield and from the Psalm 1-01 document that Bob and Ryan Wood are checking out, which was another leak. Unfortunately, the autopsy photos were not provided along with the manual, and those two drawings of the dead alien on the vintage porcelain autopsy table, you'll notice they're not steel, they're porcelain on linoleum with trays that are painted in enamel. They're vintage to the 1930s and the late 1950s. If you look at the dissection tools, they're like what you see in a high school. That's what those guys used back then. These are authentic autopsy materials. You see the old rulers and stuff that are in the drawings. That's all vintage to those times, those days. Pathologists and folks like that in the military in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, they used simple tools in order to record their findings. And like I said, there was a complex liver organ that was similar in shape to the abalone that was stuffed into the fake alien. And
Do you suppose that tell me something, the presumption is that it was fake? Studied some of the same material that you're studying now in order to
do I believe that it was a deliberate type of disinformation to make us step on ourselves and embarrass ourselves publicly? Yes, absolutely. To make us step on ourselves and embarrass ourselves and humiliate ourselves publicly. Yes, that's exactly what it was intended for. Neil and I figured out that we probably could reproduce the same effect in either one of our garages for about $163,000.
Well, that's still a significant investment, but
I mean, we could build a body,
scheme of things, not that big.
and we could build a multi-layer cast for the dissected body.
Okay, back to the real McCoy. What do we know about the way they interacted? Do we know anything about how they interacted with the craft itself?
Well, now that is the reason why I got in touch with Stephanie, and that is why Ron and I argued this is the big deal. This is huge. I went on the record with Hal Putoff a few months ago, and also John Schuessler. I very boldly told Hal that even though I'm an artist and not a business, I know that the device that he wants to build to test a warp drive engine sometime in the next decade will not work unless he has a living human somehow wired into the system. Because I don't believe he can navigate hyperspace using any kind of a sophisticated computer. Even if you have a computer that can crunch 3547 versus the kind of ammunition that was not. And also it was my first lecture, and Paul Davis had introduced me, and it was really a rough day for me because it was my first time in the line.
All right, caller.
I think I still have a video of that. It's one copy of it.
Why would I?
I really have to make a point about the aliens that I don't think is fair right now because Dr. Steve Greer's not here to defend himself. I think he kind of got shoved off into the corner there with the 25% of the information being accurate as opposed to you're pretty much agreeing down the line with John Lear. Is that correct?
I haven't come across anything that John Lear has said that in my overall composite.
I would agree with your caller that it sounded just to me like Bill agreed with John Lear.
Okay, and that's fair, but I think I need to take the point of view of Stephen Greer because of the fact that he's not here to defend himself. There's going to be other people out there that are going to think that maybe there's a larger majority of the aliens that might not be the bloodsuckers, you know. And I think I have to take that point of view in his absence because I think I emanate his feelings a little bit more. And with all due respect, 'cause I know, Bill McDonald has done very good research and he's done a hell of a lot of interviews, and I can't take that away from him. But when I look at, I think there is a flaw, I'll put it that way. I think there's a flaw in his type of research and also David Jacobs' type of research. And that flaw is that if I was to bill myself as an expert on cars, and I had never driven in a car, I'd never actually seen or touched a car, but all I had done is go out and interview people that had been in car wrecks and been traumatized, and then I wrote up my report about cars, you'd get the idea that you better stay away from these damn cars. Well, people like David Jacobs that have not only never seen aliens face to face, but never even seen an anomalous light in the sky.
Oh, okay.
Whereas Stephen Greer has never seen aliens.
Hello, time out. Help convince me, if you can, obviously you do agree abductions are going on.
Oh, yeah.
So the place we currently disagree is where you think that might be the key thing.
No, Art. I agree that there's gang members in L.A. I don't agree that the entire world here, the planetary population, is gang members. Because we have negative on the planet doesn't mean we're all bloodsuckers. And if the aliens came down here and looked at our news reports and looked at some of the trouble and gangs and wars that we have on the planet and wrote up their thesis on planet Earth, we would get a very damn good report card, now would we? But we do have people like Mother Teresa, the late Mother Teresa, and very positive, uplifting, spiritual type of people on the planet. And I don't think it's a fair portrayal. We have everything from good, bad, and different on the planet. And I think if you go out there in the stars, you're going to find the same thing. I don't think it's fair to portray them all as bloodsuckers that are here to abduct us. That does go on.
I have to disagree with you on one thing. Mother Teresa was rare and special and just thoroughly unusual human being. Statistically, for every type of person who had the kind of heart and the kind of personal sacrifice that Mother Teresa had, there's easily 800,000 people who are predatory or scavenging by their personal nature.
One to other. But we're talking about aliens. You're familiar with the Meyer case. What's your take on that? A hell of a lot of research went into it.
I've got to be honest with you. I don't trust the Meyer case. I believe he's an abductee. I believe that he's been taken out once, but I don't believe in, and I told you this, you knew this way back in 93, and I stand by this. I don't trust the Meyer case. I don't support the Meyer case.
Multiple witnesses.
I understand that, but aliens can take people, but all of this, religious, it's almost like
There was a lot of weird stuff, but how do you get past all the evidence?
the evidence doesn't support the religious aspect. And the evidence supports that the guy got abducted and that the guy was either traumatized or had a wondrous experience of some kind.
The thing is, though, I wouldn't use the word abducted, though, Bill. That's where we're getting into the difference. I don't think he was taken picking and screaming. He was enlightened, and there's over 2,000 pages of information that gives to Billy Meyer to disseminate to the planet about how we're screwing up the atmosphere, about spiritual information. He was not taken kicking and screaming with an anal probe shoved up where. He had an uplifting experience, and a lot of people don't want to confront that.
Okay, Dan, I promise you this. I'll say this in front of 10 or 24 million listeners. I promise to keep an open mind in regards to this, and I promise to listen to people who tell me that they had an uplifting experience when they have an experience. I know that they prefer to call it an experience because it's abduction. But I've got to tell you, I prefer to err on the side of caution. I'm a military person by nature. I also have a thorough understanding of chimpanzees and how human beings are in the rut. And so, I
appreciate you have an open mind, Bill.
I tend to have a more
I think aliens have as big
I've got little ones and I've got older ones.
You're clearly in the minority. I mean, you mentioned David Jacobs yourself, and perhaps a couple of others. I mean, that's about it, folks. Everybody else is sort of over on they're on our side. They will save us from our own nasty environmental ways, or if we should decide to blow ourselves up, they will stop the missiles in midair and save our butts or something like that.
You spoke to Colonel Corso. Now, who are you going to trust?
I bought everything Colonel Corso.
There you go. That is my position on it. You and I are not conflict.
East of the Rockies, near the Bill McDonald. Yes, hello.
All right, I just want to say, as far as the debate that's just going on, that's a perfect example, but just put that to a bigger universal level of different points of view. If you could get two people who are heads in their fields who have different points and perspectives of view,
Yes.
imagine what it would be universally to a race that's billions of years or more intelligent than us. Now, number two, I just wanted to say, I noticed that Mr. Donald, you underlined and listed, you said there were 17 species, but you only really sort of approached and sort of spoke about 4 different types and maybe different races of that type. As far as the human ones, or the Anunnaki, as some people would term it, or the Nordic, the ones that look like us, and they're supposed to be sort of friendly, and or the reptilian, what role would you say, if you believe they are within your 17 species, would they play in this whole big scenario?
Well, we have a lot of guests on Coast to Coast who have done a lot of research, especially regarding Anunnaki and reptilians. And I have also found in my research that whatever this phenomenon is, no matter how many species are involved, it's been going on for a very long time. I maintain a timeline of human history on a Microsoft Word document. And, there are UFO events that happened in the 13th century, UFO events in the 14th century, UFO events in the 15th and 16th century in feudal Japan and in Europe, like over Sweden, Switzerland, and Germany. And it just keeps going back. And then you have all of the mythologies and all of the
UFO contactees, I suspect that was thrown in for our benefit. Gamblers, casinos, oh, I bet they do a lot of that. Sports, betting operations, boiler room operators, smugglers, union leaders, aircraft builders, soldiers of fortune, madams, cult deprogrammers, diplomats, and arms dealers. Ah, there's a group. In recent years, his business has included helping victims of electronic harassment. Electronic harassment takes place if someone uses any sort of electronic device to aid them in invading your person or property, or for the purpose of gathering information illegally, or for the purpose of causing physical harm. Spiritosis uses over $100,000 of high-tech equipment to identify the sources of electronic harassment. In a moment, Roger Tolson, stay right there. It was a couple of decades ago, actually. And, you know, information is power. I mean, it is absolute power these days. We have made it so with our modern world. A lot of people think when they pick up a cordless device like a telephone that even though they're, of course, transmitting over the air, whether it be to a cell site or you just have a cordless phone at home or whatever, they think that's private. At any rate, even if they did subconsciously know it's going over the air, they don't ever anticipate the fact that anybody might be able to listen into that information, and they readily forget that it is a wireless phone. And they discuss things on it that they ought not. Well, somebody did something truly awful to me a couple of decades ago, and so I built a 5-element beam for 49 megahertz, pointed it at this individual's house, and listened to his conversations for a protracted period of time, and I screwed that guy's life. I got him back for what he did to me. Let's just leave it at that. In fact, I will leave it at that. Shouldn't have said that much, probably. But, Roger, welcome to the program.
So you're the perpetrator.
Yeah, I went back after somebody, let's just put it that way, and believe me, I had about I think I had a 4-element 49 megahertz beam aimed at the guy's house, and I just waited, and sure enough, boy.
The gave about 24 dB gain.
Yeah, I said, well, I don't know, 24, probably 20, somewhere in there, yeah.
And then after a while, you know all about the gossip of life, and it's amazing what you can learn when people don't think that they're...
As part of the show, listen online on Springline. Log on to coasttocoastam.com.
Argy.
Maybe. I mean, I've stood in front of satellite or microwave dishes, for example, and felt my leg getting warm. How's that one?
Well, that sounds like. But you know what the interesting thing is? The research, and there's an interesting research paper released to Europe last year, and basically what it said is that those limits on microwave exposure were originally set on thermal basis. No longer, because now they're starting to realize that when you take waves of that nature and you beam them towards people, you're interfering with brain function and brain regulation of the body to the extent that people have health problems and also people have difficulty with their thought processes. They become disoriented and lethargic. And of course, this is kind of what the covert black ops people have been doing, especially with making these microwave energy weapon systems that are now in the non-lethal technology. I don't know if you've seen the active denial unit, which is a microwave weapon that can be used.
I have not.
It's on the internet, but they call it active denial, and it operates at 60 gigahertz. It puts out so much power that they allowed a reporter to go out and stand in the meeting. He volunteered to do so. It's popular on the campus website. So he went out there and he stood probably about 500 feet away from us. And basically, it's a microwave antenna mounted on top of the Humvee. And they turned the thing on, and he said it was like having a hot light bulb pressed on your skin. And in about 3 seconds, he dove out of the ray and hit the dirt. And this is one of the weapons that they've got. This one's online, and it can be mounted on a Humvee or put on an aircraft. And,
Well, you of course have heard of HARP, right?
Of course.
HARP is said to have, at a larger scale, Roger, similar characteristics, possibly. They don't talk a lot about this aspect of it, but those who have studied HARP believe that it can be used to confuse entire armies on the battlefield at a great distance.
Well, you know, if you go into this electronic harassment section on my website, you should look at it when we're talking, bugsweeps.com. If you go to the front page, there's a vibrating box that says electronic harassment. If you click on that, it will take you to these pages. On the pages, we show some of these microwave weapons, energy beam weapons that people have put together to harass one another. We have one of the pictures there is of a microwave oven where an individual peeled the side of the microwave oven open and turned it into an energy beam weapon that whether it was 700, 800 watts, and he just unleashed it at his neighbors through the wall. He was in an apartment building. We have a diagram of that, and he caused these people to be dreadfully ill over time.
Oh my. He really, we had joked about this on AM radio, that they are in fact very high power, 700, 800 or more watts, and that's a great deal of power. And if you could get the element out of that, and if you could put it in front of a parabola of some sort.
You don't even have to get the element out, because you have the ability to go on the net right there and have a look at this. You can be right there.
Well, we've got a break coming up, so yes, of course, I have that.
Have a look at this thing, because I got a picture of the actual unit that they tore the side out to modify.
And how long ago did you say?
In the past couple of years, I can't give you an exact date, but and that's just.
What were the symptoms of the people that were exposed for what period of time were they exposed?
Well, I don't know all the details of the exact event. We just have gotten those from second agents who don't know all the details.
Okay.
It was over time. These people just, had a major fallout with these neighbors, and if I remember correctly, they were trying to get them to move out because they wanted to take over their unit as well. So
They got physically ill?
physically ill, yeah. In some cases, you get cancer in the lung.
That's rough stuff. All right, hold it right there, and we'll be right back after news. I'm going to go take a look at that. Hey, if you could really get to somebody who would attempt to justify something like that at all.
Well, when I brought it to Barbara's attention, she couldn't believe it. She said, I never heard of this legislation. I'm going to go to the Department of Defense and I'm going to ask them. So she did. She wrote a letter, as a senator can with that kind of department. And the Department of Defense, I've got a copy of the letter, wrote back, oh, we don't do it.
They said we don't do that.
So the interesting part is that law was repealed. 1520 was repealed. And we said, wow, we really did something here. Right.
No, the trails, a lot of clubs out there. The desert, man, almost unheard of. So,
But you know, my view of it has been that everybody's got a Fourth Amendment right. You hire me, and you're not doing criminal activity by president. You've got a right to have your privacy checked. You know, hey, you have $100,000. Check your privacy.
well, in such a situation, you might well find yourself in an electronic countermeasures war with the FBI.
Yeah. That has been an outcome along the way.
Well, isn't that difficult touching ground for you to be on?
Well, yeah, it is. As a matter of fact, I did have one situation there that got had to do. But you know what happens is if there's a lawful warrant to wiretap somebody, I certainly don't want to differ. No, certainly I don't want to be charged with obstruction of justice, which is
It could happen,
the
right?
way it happens.
Yeah.
So what has to happen is, and I've told those agencies before, you know, if you find that you got surveillance on place, you find me, you go in there and just identify that I'm there, you know, just let me know. Dial will find a reason to bow out.
Well, if it were gangsters that had hired you, then wouldn't bowing out at such time possibly bring on the termination part of this story?
Yeah, I actually had to lay low for several months at one point, and there was a certain amount of confusion going on.
I see.
I had to go out to the desert where, you know, kind of like where you are,
Yes.
and I had to lay low for an extended period of time until the confusion got cleared up.
So yes, let's arrange that. In the meantime, let's talk for a second about, and I know people want to know about this, how do they recognize if they are a victim of harassment or something even less? I mean, even your phone's tapped. Is there any real way to know, Roger, are you the guy? I mean, you got to call Roger to know, or what?
Yeah, well, that's it. You know, if you don't have $100,000 worth of gear and somebody that knows how to operate it with the proper experience, to look at things like radar charts, you know, we use time-domain reflectometry, which is a radar system. And radar is telephone cables and shoots pulses down the cable. And then those pulses go down and they hit the impedance, different terminal blocks, and send back reflections. And all those things kind of look like a heartbeat cardiogram that you get from a heartbeat doctor. You know, those are the things. I've looked at 25,000 charts. Like any heartbeat or cardiac doctor, I can tell you what part of the valves are working right, you know, or whether the aorta is pumping. You know, it's just a matter of this whole business that I'm in is wave interpretation. It's wave pattern recognition.
Let me tell you an interesting story. Maybe you can help me out here. This happened to me, so it's an easy story to tell. Here, in order to accomplish the program, to get the program from point A to point B, we have a KU band uplink in my backyard, which transmits the program up and then, you know, to LA and then all the world, right? So I've got that. Then I also have internet here from a very good local company that provides microwave internet. That's how I get my internet. It comes by microwave, and I supply a tower to retransmit it from here. So I've got that. And one night, Roger, I was on the air. Now, keep in mind, I live pretty close to Area 51. And the network began to lose me. So I ran into the next room, you know, in an emergency situation, and I looked at the uplink, and I could see the received signal from, at that time, Oregon, was falling steadily down past the point where it would work. In other words, it got so low that we lost lock. And then my signal back to them was falling at the same rate. Now, check this out, Roger. That night, a microwave blanket of some sort descended on this valley, and this company has 9 towers scattered around the valley that transmit 2.4 gigs of internet. They chart everything, so they've got little charts on every one of the receivers and transmitters, so they can see the amount of bandwidth that's going. And at the exact time that my uplink failed, every single one of the transmitters and retransmitters also failed. A program we were recording on satellite television stopped recording. It just went blank. In other words, some godforsaken gigantic electromagnetic blanket of some sort descended on this valley for about a half an hour.
Well, those guys in the electronic countermeasures plane that was up there just testing their stuff and having fun are saying, "That yard fell."
You think
Man,
so?
did we jam that dude out or what? Hey, what do you think they do with those aircraft? You think they just fly them over the ocean? You got to have some signals to work with, man.
Yeah.
Sure. And those guys are a bunch of young, smart guys, and that, those aircraft are awesome. I mean, they pick up waves. You shoot a wave at them, and they got computers that will analyze that wave in microseconds and synthesize something to beam right back at you that's going to turn your stuff into mush.
Well, I have been told that I cause the threat receivers of like the F-16s that go over our house frequently and other military aircraft which are just all over the place. I actually cause the threat receivers to come on, which I've always worried about because if somebody should hit the pickle at the wrong moment, I'm toast.
Yeah. Well, I put my money on that one because I thought, I don't know if you met some of these retired spooks, but they got a great sense of humor.
Actually, you're right.
They're totally cool people, and I have a lot of connections with a lot of people that were into a lot of heavy things, and they are some of the most fun people.
Well, I know they are, and I know they have senses of humor, and every now and then I see these large down the street. In my town, let's put it that way. In my town, there are two houses of actual repute because it's legal here, and I've seen large helicopters that could only be military helicopters landing down there. So yes,
Secret mission.
they're like secret mission. They're just like the rest of us. So that includes a sense of humor and sense of fun.
Before I forget about it, I want to throw this one out there and see if anybody knows about it. I have harassment victim, and she went away from her car. When she came back to her car, somebody had left a red baseball cap. And I've got pictures of this baseball cap now because we visited and looked at it firsthand. On the back of the cap is embroidered, "We deny that we exist." On the front of the cap is a man's profile with the top half of his head hinged and flipped open with a microwave antenna sticking out of his skull.
And what was this lady's about?
Well, she's a victim of electronic harassment. And sometimes these people get direct contact. This particular one, not just when anybody out there knows anything about it, they do email me at info@booksweeps.com.
Oh, this is a current thing.
Yeah, this happened only about a month ago. And I just recently got a chance to look at it and photograph it with my digital camera. Embroidered on the back, it says, "We deny that we exist." Front, his profile, wearing the parts of the top half of his head flipped open, was like a Yankee sticking out.
Such thing could be a joke, but I suppose you can imagine for somebody who's actually being harassed that it's not such a joke.
Yeah, she's not laughing.
How do
Well, normally, people will just run the keyword electronic harassment. The other end.
you don't have anything like 1-800 crushed balls?
No, it's got but if you run keywords, we have a website that all covers the whole history of bug sweeping. As an example, I wanted to tell you, we're talking about different the federal wiretaps. There was a historical man that was named Mark Smith out. And if you go into my website, historical section, I've got the original light map of the article where they went out and they planted bugs. Because in those days, you could plant bugs as an article. And in his book, he talks about how he's sweeping for Jimmy Hoffa. And Jimmy Hoffa would sneak him into his hotels and a laundry basket with his equipment. And Spadell would go to the hotel with him up, and he tuned in not much. And it's a horrible, crushing thing to happen to people. Really talk about a major headache and a paper blizzard that's necessary to bear it. It's terrible.
And it sounds just like a cooked up excuse. Somebody's stolen my identity, they've stolen my money, they've stolen my life.
And then you'll be looked at like you're a criminal.
Yeah. And so then, are the defenses currently in place sufficient to the threat posed with regard to identity theft?
by numbers anyway. The banks, they expect to have a certain element of losses, you know, for them it's just lost business. But the people that get crushed, and the credit reports go south, the credit destroyed together real quick.
Yeah, so we need to develop much better defenses against this sort of thing, and it seems like the other side is winning. In other words, technology is moving much faster than people like yourself who might be in place to prevent this kind of thing.
Well, I'm not there to prevent it. I'm there to identify what it's taking.
Oh, that's true. In other words, you can't actually act. Let me ask you this, Roger. How many times do you discover a microphone or surveillance or something illegal and then get to go to the authorities yourself and say, okay, look, here's what we got here?
Yeah, well, we discovered things around 15% of it. And though it's going up with these covert cameras, they're turning up a lot.
My point is, do you get to go to the authorities then, the police, and say, hey, I'm going to follow the leads here, somebody whose privacy has been violated, or how do you handle it?
Well, we meet with the legal counsel of the victim, and the legal counsel at that point steps in. We provide photographic evidence and written affidavits about the fine and all that.
Right.
We allow them to go forward with what they decide to do. In some cases, they decide to leave the listening device in place and send in bad information.
Well, that's perfect. Person on the other end, isn't it? So I guess, well, I can see that. I mean, bad information thought to be good is every bit as good as what the person is trying to do to you. Right? Okay, hold on, Roger. We will open the phones in the next hour. I know there'll be a million questions out there, as there should be for a guest of this caliber. After all, it's the day and age. So, 'em. Incidentally, you mentioned entertainers. I can understand gangsters. I can understand, I don't know, co-leaders, even politicians, doctors, lawyers, real estate owners, all these different gamblers, oh, for sure. But you know what? Why celebrities? I mean, is it...
Paparazzi.
Really?
Oh. I think I had one case where I had this very wealthy man call me from Palm Springs. He said, oh my God, they made a tape of me and my girlfriend making love. And I said, well, who's your girlfriend? He says, she's just famous. Oh, and he said, and not only that, but what happened was the people that made this tape took the tape and put it in a box and put it on her front doorstep and rang the doorbell. And when she opened it up, she played the tape, and here she is making love. So I went out to this extremely expensive hilltop mansion out there. And this guy plays the tape for me, and believe me, you immediately know what star it was, and she is a screamer. I mean, this tape was one spicy meatball. At any rate, what we determined by listening to the tape was that the tape was somebody snuck a voice-activated tape machine in the room. I could tell it wasn't modulated with the transmitter would have caused an FM transmitter.
Sure.
We swept the place out. We figured it was a drop recorder. I took the tape back to Hollywood to give my friend Norm Kroll, who at that time was Apex Printing, analyzed tapes. He actually worked on Watergate tapes as well. He since passed on to this group. Anyway, to make a long story short, I get this phone call about 4 hours later. He called the client calls me up. He says, "Oh my God, she called the president. The FBI's on its way to your house. Pick up the tapes." Sure enough, doorbell rings about 2 hours later. A great looking FBI agent lady in a suit with her identification.
Almost like conducting some sort of paranormal investigation. That's really strange stuff.
Very close.
That's really something. All right, Roger, hold tight. We'll do some more telephones and talk to you a little more about this wild business you're in.
But I do know that if you put these receiving systems in aviation aircraft like this UAC that we're talking about,
Yes.
or you use satellites, or you just have a good truck that has all that automated reception equipment, you can get things down there. There's plenty of stuff that
They have directional capabilities now that just not such.
Well, look at next time you look around, look at West Camp, because West Camp is a situation in the news helicopters use it whereby you put the coordinates of the GPS where your receiving antenna is,
Yeah.
and no matter what pitch the helicopter's at, that antenna stays locked in. And that's just hit West Camp on your search engine and go look at the West Camp mounts. Their GPS guide and also transmission guide as well.
East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Roger Tulsa Sign. Hello, turn the radio off and proceed.
Oh, yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I keep reading things, or seeing these books for sale about how to hide your assets and disappear.
Yes.
Can you really do that in this day and age?
Yes, you can. It would be very interesting, thank you, to get somebody like Roger Tulsis. And there was a man who wrote a book called How to Hide Your Assets and Disappear. And of course, like you, Roger, he's a high-tech type person that can virtually erase who you are, create a new you. And it's not that tough, is it?
I don't have expertise in that area, but I can tell you technically that if you're going to bury gold, you better put it 12 feet down.
Now, see, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
12 feet, huh?
Yeah, they get metal detectors now that will pick up metal under that depth of soil. So that much I can tell you.
Well, there's a spiffy piece of information.
Yeah.
Listen, have you yet written a book?
No.
Are you gonna?
Well, if I could find an author to work with me, I just don't have anybody that's a competent author. So if there's a competent author out there that would like to sit down and talk about 2,500 sweeps and the incredible people, that would be interesting to do.
I mean, you must have a million more stories.
I do.
I'm sure you do. So somebody ought to sit down with you and write a bestseller.
Yeah, we could do that. We could do fiction as well. I just don't have, I'm working right now. I haven't been home in several weeks. I've been going from sweep to sweep to sweep, and I work at night. So we come in after everybody goes home, 6 o'clock at night. And that way we've got the office and the phone systems there, and we kind of like night pools,
Yes, we do have a lot in common.
Yeah, we do. You and I are, we're flip on our belt. We're sweeping away,
Okay, Ron, so the best way to contact you is the final and probably most important question for people who are listening and really do want to contact you through the website or what?
Yeah, just go to bugsweeps.com and then click on the info, the mail. There's a mail icon up there, and just send. But however, I may not be back, but I have some portable computers, but right now I'm so overloaded, you better give me at least a week to try to get back.
Well, I think people understand you're going to be overloaded, and I can imagine rapidly listening, you're just going to get an awful lot to sift through. I want to thank you for being a guest tonight. You've been wonderful.
It's great, Art.
And we will have you back again, to be sure. Roger Tulsis, thank you. And tonight, wasn't that something? In case you were wondering about what can be done, you don't have to wonder anymore. We just laid an awful lot out for you. That'll do it for me this weekend. See you again. And once again, the weekend, here's a lead crystal as the words keep us out. All right, that's it. Goodbye.
Southwest Laboratory. And again, I don't mind saying the name of the laboratory because fuel's off and we'll never get in there again. So, no sense hiding the laboratory. Southwest Lab, Laboratory in Texas. He looked at it microscopically, and he had a couple of people look at it for some technical and he ran some tests on it. First place under the microscope, he found a vegetable layer on the outside of the thing. A vegetable layer. So he called me on the phone and said, tell me what you found. And I said, well, Bill, this may not be too unusual because if it is a claw or a nail, one of the most common things is they become infected with fungus.
that he would find a vegetable layer.
Yes.
So he thought that was sounded okay, and he went ahead and proceeded to do some more tests on the inner layers, and he found that they contained a proteinaceous substance which was very close to keratin. Keratin is what makes up our fingernails. So with that ammunition, we were pretty well convinced this is the cloth. Now, it went from there to a primate zoologist, PhD, at the San Diego Zoo. Took it down there personally, and this kind lady looked at it, wandered over the book, got on the internet, and looked at it under a microscope, and posted these pros, and couldn't identify it as any primate claw that she ever saw.
So now, by now, you're really starting to think you've got something on your hands.
Yep. Now, we could have started shooting horns at any time, shooting right at them. Hey guys, I'm the duck call for the next generation. Oh boy. But we didn't do that because that's not the way I work. Try to get some scientific basis. So we knew what we had to do at that point was obviously to look at the DNA.
Right, of course.
So specimens were very carefully taken in the manner in which they should be taken, which wasn't done in the OJ case. And we sent these sterile specimens to a very world-famous genetic researcher who I can't mention his name.
That's all right. No, that's all right.
And he started doing the DNA studies, and he was funding it himself at the beginning. As we got out of it, the reports we started getting back were absolutely earth-shocking.
In what sense?
They came back as non-terrestrial DNA. So we said, oh boy, we got a tiger by the tail.
But nevertheless, DNA, huh? In other words, recognizable.
Recognizable DNA chain, but these chains didn't match anything in the database. Not human, not primate, nothing. So we went on, and as we went on, we had to raise some more money. And if you don't mind me mentioning their names, Bob and Silverano were very, very responsible for getting us some further funding.
No, I don't mind at all.
Nice people.
So you raised more money.
So we raised more money and continued the research, which virtually went on for about 2 years. Still getting reports of stuff that match for any terrestrial animal. So we had to go, by doing so, this would have been a first for not only phenomenology, but certainly in the field of UFOs and particularly abduction.
Oh, so you lip sealed.
The lip sealed, and I stopped talking about this case on television, on radio, and traveling about the world.
Yeah, I remember when you began to shut up about it.
Yeah, and of course, you get all the character assassination stuff that he's hiding something, he's burying something, something he's not going to do.
Well, you actually were.
Yeah. For the moment. But certainly not forever.
Right.
So anyway, we had to do something to really push this through organized science. And so I got my good friend at National, my original friend decides to look at the RNA.
Hold it right there, Doc. That's a good hook. Bottom of the hour. I'm Art Bell. We'll be right back. RNA.
We're looking at the RNA, and suddenly we get a match in the GenBank database. And it turns out to be in the family of molluscum, a mollusk, a snail, a slug.
It was a slug.
It was a slug,
Right, so-
a terrestrial
Slug. Oh boy, and so I'm sure you felt like you just got slugged.
Yeah, I sure did. But boy, at that time, I was just so tickled to death that I didn't flap my lips
Oh yeah.
to the wind.
Oh yes, indeed.
How was it all involved? Look, if we published this article and someone would have come along with this.
You look like slugs. Conducting the abductions had a sense of humor, and you mentioned that it had recognized apparently the towel with the aluminum foil for the footprints, so maybe it just said to its little alien self, hey, let's have some fun. Let's drop one of these New Zealand slug claws.
Or was it something that was on somebody's coat and fell off? I know I discussed this with Whitley, and he verified the fact that a number of different physical evidence cases that showed things that were mysteriously there from the sea.
Well, you've had probably more experience with physical evidence than almost any other investigator, save perhaps crop circle investigators. Of those items that you have removed from people, what percentage of those, only 10, but what percentage are anomalous today?
Well, the total number of surgeries was 10 to date.
Yes.
The number of objects was 11.
11.
One of these objects turned out to be a very expensive piece of glass. Not expensive from a manufacturing standpoint, of the research to find out exactly what it was. But the other 10 have all had anomalous things, both metallurgically and biologically. The two most outstanding, there are three. One is when you examine the individual prior to the time that they're removed, they found that these objects are emitting an electromagnetic field of about 6 milligauss. Now that, as you know, are pretty
Yes, it
strong
is.
field.
It certainly is.
And once they're out, they emit nothing. They're obviously plugged. Then you go look at the biological anomalies. We find that there's no inflammatory response by the body.
Can I just stop you for 1 second? The fact that the radiation ceases when it's removed from the body, would that indicate to you that it's drawing its power from the biological entities to which it's attached, or that it's just remotely, shut off?
I would say that the power source is disconnected. It's been unplugged because one of the biological findings we find that not only a lack of inflammatory response, but there's a large number of nerve cells which are not politically correct to the anatomical area that they're in.
So it's modified the nerve structure near it.
That's what it seems to be. And of course, the other startling thing, here's somebody that comes, the alleged alien abduction scenario, and the stories are all extremely interesting. I love what they hear on the catalog, write them and so on. But to me, the thing is the physical evidence aspect.
Sure, of course, yes.
So you look at the metallurgy, and that information comes back to me from laboratories like the Technical Tattnall, National Labs, and they tell me, for example, they find iron, and the iron turns out to be parts of iron, but yet the object is so magnetic, they can't understand how it's not magnetic at all, and the iron, the object, has no molecular structure.
Doctor, is there anything in any and or all of the cases that would lead you toward a clue about function?
Function is entirely theoretical as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there's a number of popular theories. One that could be transponders for location, or modifiers of behavior, or they could be detection devices that we use with astronauts. But I have another theory, and I think that they are perhaps at least some group of them are genetic detection devices to detect modifications in our genetics. I believe again that going around the world, I think that the kids that have been born in the last 40, 50 years are not the same human beings.
You're not the first person to say that. Can you back that up with any science at all?
I know that it's possible. I was talking to Colonel Kelleher at NIDS. He thinks that we could do a study to look at old DNA versus new DNA.
Yes.
Possibly pinpoint it. All we need is the funds to do it. But there's a large amount of books that are coming out. The Millennium Children.
I know. I know. Star Children.
Star Children. Indigo Children.
Right. Okay, then let's try this angle. What do you think is the difference between these children and my generation? What's the difference?
Well, I can tell you exactly. You asked me if there's scientific proof. There's statistical scientific proof because they've done a study on 17 functional growth characteristics. And this has nothing to do with the child's mood or their IQ or anything else, or what they're wearing or what they ate. It's just, what age did they stand, what age did they raise their head, what age did they talk, and so on.
Yes.
And we find looking at 17 functional growth characteristics in a 40-year period, 1947 to 1987, they've been accelerated from 60 to 80%.
Wow.
You can't argue with
that. That is a big.
And how many mothers do you talk to that tell you, their child has done this or said this, and you don't know where to look at them.
So then, Doctor, maybe all of these alien abductions and this interaction between aliens and humans, I mean, so many researchers think it's for genetic purposes, favoring them or favoring us, but genetic because of the examination of reproductive organs, that kind of thing. The cows, all of that, the genetics there, all of this perhaps could be to our benefit in the sense that right before our very eyes, they're changing us.
Well, I'll tell you, I tend to lean in that direction, but I hate to use the word all, because, folks like David Jacobs, the famous, well-respected researcher.
Well, I have a lot of respect for Dr. Jacobs.
I think that there's some hybrid program going on, and I tend to agree that maybe it's not the word all should be used, because maybe different strokes for different folks.
Well, what I respect about Dr. Jacobs is he's one of the very few people who has said, with regard to aliens, hey, wait a minute now, all this warm, fuzzy stuff, they may not be our friends. We don't really know, and you've got to admit, we don't really know what they're doing. And so I'd say it's even money on whether it's good for us or perhaps not so good for us.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. And it just goes back to what I said before. If any one of us claims to have the answers, you better put your fingers in your ears and run, because we don't.
How many, this is just asking for a guess here, but how many people do you suppose are running around who are implanted, who A, may not have the faintest idea themselves they've been implanted, and B, nobody else knows as well? In other words, how many are out there that we don't know about versus the ones that have come and complained?
Well, let's look at the few figures that we have from the Roper poll, for example, in relation to the amount of abductees, 2%. And we're talking about quite a few million people as we multiply this on a worldwide basis. And it would seem to me that in my experience, which is small and brief, that there's about 15% that might be have objects in them for some reason. And this kind of goes along. Think about, what do we do with our implanting lesser life forms?
Yes.
About 15%.
So you're suggesting you do believe that 15% of the totality of the population is implanted?
So the totality of the abductees.
Of those who have claimed abduction?
Right. Now, also another thing, just to hit on it a minute ago, if things go the way they're supposed to go, I don't think you're supposed to know if you've been abducted.
I'd rather suspect not. Except in perhaps rare cases, I don't think you're supposed to know you are either. And if you're really talented at creating a situation where you don't remember and you don't know, then most of them probably haven't been reported.
I think one of the things that's going on is, as we discussed with the kids, is an expansion of consciousness, and this can become a problem because it can become a problem for the abductor. If one's consciousness is being expanded, then all of a sudden you're going to have a few leaks through memories of things that you may have not been aware of before.
If you were aware, Doctor, that you had an implant yourself, would you remove it, or would you leave it and see what happened?
Oh, I would have to give you a very biased answer on that, because, I mean, if someone asked me if, a craft landed, I was to wave the board, would I go? Of course I'd go. All fear would be outweighed by the scientific curiosity. Now, someone asked me, probably.
Yes, I know, but your scientific curiosity in the case of an implant you knew you had in yourself could be, I guess, there's two directions for that. On the one hand, you could take it out and try and examine it. On the other hand, you could leave it in and try and figure out what it was doing to you.
Oh, that's good. That's a good question. Because, boy, that takes it right home.
Yeah.
Again, scientific curiosity can go two ways. But I think I would leave it in, and if I could get the test done that I thought should be run on it, I would leave it in there for as long as I possibly could to get the most amount of knowledge out of it before it was ever removed.
Yes, well, the one that stood the hair on the back of my neck straight up was when Whitley and the surgeon did the work on Whitley on the program, and the surgeon said straight to me, Art, I got in there, I got near it with the scalpel, and I watched it move within his ear. The implant moved by itself to a place where I couldn't get it without doing damage.
Well, Art, the last case I did was the case of a lady who had an object in the arm that when you touched it, it moved out of the way. And when we went to remove it, the surgeon that did it had to put a finger on either side to keep it in the surgical wound area.
Oh my. Really?
And we got it.
And you got it?
And we got it.
And was it moving after you got it?
No.
So I guess all of this is going to remain very mysterious and unsettling until we can, I don't know how we move forward in this area, how we learn anything, but we've got to. It's too interesting. Where do you go? That's, I guess, a good question. Where does your research go now?
Well, we've got to raise the necessary funds so that we can keep the fires of scientific research going in the manner that we did with the claw. The claw should be a really good example of how academic science can be applied to phenomenology, ufology, or any other field that you want to investigate.
Well, as you know, I was given a piece of material said to be from the Roswell crash, which we had investigated by Carnegie and others, and is indeed anomalous, not from this world, and I still have it. And it's a kind of an odd thing, because when I got it, I really thought very hard about what to do about it, and I can tell you that most people, Doctor, are going to just put it away as an oddity, and they're never going to turn it over to anybody. If somebody's got something out there, and you can bet your bottom dollar they do, and they want to get hold of you, to have you take a look-see at something or test something, how do they do that? How do they get hold of you?
Well, the easiest way is to go through my website, which is alienscalpel.com with one S.
Right, and by the way, your book, they might want to read The Alien and the Scalpel, still out there, still, I take it, available on eBay or whatever.
Yeah, should be able to get it, and if they can't, again, go through the website. We'd be happy to get them a copy.
So one way or the other, they can get it.
Sure, and then my new one out that has one great story in it, the anthology that we wrote called Chopped Liver.
Chopped Liver? Now, there's a title for a book. Chopped Liver, huh?
Chopped Liver.
All right. Well, as always, Dr. Lear, it's a pleasure having you here, and I want to thank you for all the work you do on behalf of those who want to know what the hell is going on out there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good right, Dr. Space Science Museum curator, it's hard to picture him in that role, a former NASA consultant, and during the historic Apollo missions to the moon was science advisor to Walter C. Kite, CBS News. The past 19 years, Hoagland has been leading in outside scientific independent analysis of design on Mars and annoying agents. The past 4 years, his team's investigators have been quietly extended over 30 years of previously trained data. NASA Anyway, look, you've got something pretty big, in my opinion.
So you went and looked.
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know what?
Post. You go to the ASU website, Arizona State University website, which is the university team actually running the camera on the Mars Odyssey spacecraft. They have a website, which is linked through Enterprise, and you can go to the actual page. The article that you have cited, we have extensive links to all the official information so that everybody can follow mouse and ball. There's nothing here, no sleight of hand, no magic, no hidden stuff. We're laying out what they have given the American people and the world. So I went to their official website, I'm looking at this picture, first dawn image of Sidonia, and the first thing that rings the bell is when I look at the very bottom of the data block, it says Sidonia face at night. But what? Huh? How the heck can you take a picture with this camera at night? They have trouble taking pictures when the sun is barely low above the horizon. How the heck can take it at night? So I looked a little closer, and in the data block, there's a whole bunch of angles. The sub-spacecraft point Flandern and a whole bunch of others, they have, Carlotto comes to mind, they have been expecting a symmetrical or close to symmetrical representation, and I think that's what you expected too. When it did not look symmetrical or anything close to it, you guys threw your hands up and said, oh my God. Now, you threw it up one way, they threw it up another way. They had the damage side, preserved side hypothesis. And everybody thought that the eastern side on the right, was the damage side. We said, papers we published on Enterprise then, that no guys, you got it exactly backwards. It's the western side, the hominid side, the side toward the city, toward the pyramids, which is the damage side. And it's the eastern side, which has been protected and has preserved the original species, whatever that was. Now we fast forward the film to July of this year. Honestly, take the picture precisely at the one moment of nail where you can decide the issue, and they take it not just in one color, they give it to us in 5 colors. And if you look at that ASU diagram there, you can see you can click on it. At the top, it's got a link which actually gives you band 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Right.
the false color.
I see it.
You've got a lot of data to work with. What you see is that in any band, the right-hand side is so incredibly reflective of the eastern side.
Yeah, so,
The side in our model that was more protected.
so what is it that we're looking at?
Okay, I think
we
we're
might
looking-
only aluminum foil, Richard.
I think we're looking, I think that that's the end of the show. I'd like to go home. You can do something else for the rest of the night, because that's the bottom line.
You think
We're looking at something that is 99 plus reflectivity. I've actually got a numerical quantitative measurement further down the paper. What we've done is we've taken,
give me the reflectivity figures for some other, I don't know, for wood or for iron.
well, the orange, this is Mars. The average reflectivity of Martian stuff,
Yes,
base,
yes.
ground,
Oh, good.
canyons,
Yes.
is 7 to 15%.
7 to 15.
A really bright area is 20%.
And yet what we have on the eastern face here of the base is 90
Over 99%.
over 99%. That's like
And the sun is not up yet.
That's close to a damn mirror.
That's right, precisely.
So
It's behaving like what we call a specular mirror. And if you look at the various versions, just scan down the paper and look at the various images. You don't even have to read the text, just look at the images. You'll see that when you turn the brightness down of the official version, all we've done here is to turn the brightness down, like having a picture on your TV screen. You turn the brightness down. Back in the days when you had knobs on the screen, do that. What you then see on the right, under that overwhelming glare, remember, in a pre-dawn picture, you know how dark it is on Mars in a pre-dawn image? Imagine you're standing in Sedona.
well, we have a lot of atmosphere, and so pre-dawn on Earth is not like pre-dawn on Mars. They would be far darker. So
It
it's
would be
actually
much darker, and roughly 100 times darker. Why? Well, because the atmosphere is 100 times less dense.
right.
Now, you add some dust, so maybe it's only 50 times, all right? But it's damn dark down there.
Right.
Now, if you take a picture, a time exposure, you can obviously make anything look brighter or dim, depending on how long you expose it.
Can I ask you a question?
That's what you sit there for.
Okay, other than the possibility that we're looking at some sort of incredibly reflective material, is there any possibility, Richard, that we're observing either a heat anomaly or a radiation anomaly?
No, the reason is simple. The camera we're looking through, images we're getting, are visible light or near infrared. The problem has been on this camera is not sensitive to radiation. In fact, if there was radiation coming from the surface of Mars, what you'd see is a noisy speckle here, because how would the radiation be focused? By the optics of the camera lenses.
Well, this alone,
It has to be visible light.
Richard, this alone should cause them to want to go back and take many, many more photographs, not just pass it over Mount Florence, but I mean, what do they say about this at NASA?
They don't say a word.
Why not?
What they do is they do clever little things.
right, so those who haven't made it, describe in words simply what is there.
Radios before the internet. What a concept. Okay, what this little spacecraft did is look down at Sidonia, the face of the Medina Pyramid, the city of pyramids to the west. Before the sun had even come up, the sky was dark, a glimmer of light in the east above where it would come up. It took a picture. Actually, it took 5 pictures simultaneously.
But I'm saying describe this photograph visually. Tell me exactly how dramatic it is.
What you are seeing on this image is the face, the famous face on Mars, looking on the eastern side as if it's lit up like a Christmas tree in comparison to other nearby objects.
In fact, it's so bright, the entire, what I would call the damaged side, is so bright, it looks like they ripped away what rock was there, and what we've got left is aluminum foil. I mean, it is that reflective.
Well, why do we keep persisting on and thinking that it's rock? I have been saying since 1992, in fact, in this paper, you will see the quotes from my book, The Monuments of Mars.